Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and it's great to be back with you. Hope you're enjoying your early day so far. I'm filming this on Sunday. Boy, I tell you what, yesterday, that is Saturday, we got an absolutely wonderful rain. We got 1.6 inches of rain. It started turning brown and all that kind of stuff. But boy, it was really, really a nice rain. Kicked me out of going to the swap meet on Saturday, but I did get to go on Thursday and Friday. So anyway, it's good to have you back. Appreciate you very, very, very much. Listen, we're closing in on 12,000 subscribers. All right. So this is up to you. If you're a regular viewer, or even if you're not, of my channel, please hit the like, hit the subscribe button. I'm just that far away from 12,000 subscribers. Okay. And so I want to reach there before the first of the year. That's my goal. And I'm only a little over 200 subscribers. So come on, hit that subscribe button. All right. So we are continuing. We are continuing our discussion and investigation of Shemeni Atzerat because Shemeni Atzerat was the Jewish feast day that typified, foreshadowed. It was of course a Sabbath, and it typified, foreshadowed the new creation. So we're looking at that specific angle of it. And I'm focused on Isaiah 64 to 66. All right? So, pardon me, Isaiah 64 to 66 serve, to a great extent as the real foundation for the entire biblical doctrine of the new heaven and new earth. And you say, well, what about Revelation 21? What about 2 Peter chapter 3? Well, guess where they're based on, what they're based on. Where are they drawing from? Virtually all scholars agree they're drawing from Isaiah 64 to 66. That's why I'm spending the time on it. Okay, so I've discussed the salvation of the remnant that is foretold in Isaiah 65, verses 8 and following. And folks, I cannot overemphasize how important this concept of the salvation of the remnant is to the overall doctrine of the new creation. All right? The great majority of commentators who speak about the new creation, or who even talk about the salvation of the remnant, it's almost, there are some who differ, but it's almost as if they create a dichotomy between the salvation of the remnant and the coming of the new creation. But that's unjustified, and it's improper. So, the new creation would be the home of, if you please, the righteous remnant. But not just the righteous remnant. According to Isaiah chapter 66, and we'll see this, it would also include the nations who had never known the Lord, who had never called on his name. I just get I get a little upset, I have to confess, when people say no, the new creation is strictly and exclusively for Israel only. That's ridiculous. This is getting ahead of myself, but in Isaiah chapter 66, after the day of the Lord, you get that? Survivors of that day then go to the nations who had never known the Lord. They had never called on his name, and they bring them to Mount Zion to worship the Lord. That means that it's the righteous remnant, along with the nations who had never known the Lord, who comprise the new creation. Okay, so one of the things that I've begun to emphasize for you is how the salvation of the remnant carried with it the implication of the judgment of the body. I want to develop that this morning specifically and explicitly from Isaiah chapter 65. Now remember, Isaiah 65 verse 8, thus says the Lord, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one says, do not destroy it all, even so I will not destroy them, i.e., O covenant Israel. I'll not destroy them all. I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob and out of Judah, an inheritor of my mountains. Sharon shall be a fold of flocks. The valley of Achor. By the way, I'm not much on geography at all, but this terminology of Sharon and Achor, it can be used in both a negative and a positive way. Here it's obviously in a very positive way as the abode of the righteous, because evidently those were very verdant fields and regions that were great, fantastic for flocks. Okay, that's what I gleaned from it. But nonetheless, but notice this, turning from the positive imagery of the righteous being saved and having a place in Achor and the valley of Achor, now he turns to something negative. And I made the point yesterday. This is important. The concept of salvation and condemnation are synchronous events. They both happen at the same time. So now the Lord turns to focus on not the remnant, but on the body. You are those that forsake the Lord. Now, clearly, he's not talking about the righteous remnant. That forget my holy mountain, that prepare a table for that troop, and that furnish the drink offering unto that number. Now, the original of this is indicative of idolatry. You are those that forget my holy mountain, and you prepare a table for that troop. Well, here you have Gad. Let me see, what are the two words? Gad and Minai. Those were terms associated with idolatry. And somebody jumps up and says, well, then that means you're wrong to apply this to the first century. You're wrong to apply this to the time of Paul. Well, then Paul must have been wrong when he said he was fulfilling Isaiah chapter 65 in Romans 10, 22 and 23. Paul wasn't wrong. He was viewing the events of Isaiah 64 to 66 through the prism of typology and the Christ event. He was viewing what many would call a historical day of the Lord. And as most of the rabbis, most of the Jews of the ancient world believed, Israel's history would be recapitulated in the last days. In the last days before the coming of the Lord, the judgment and the resurrection. So if you want to say, well, Paul has in mind a very specific historical situation in which Israel was in bondage or about to go into bondage in Babylon, well, okay, that's fine. That doesn't mean that it wasn't typological. Because when the New Testament writers quote from or echo Isaiah 64 to 66 over and over and over again, then guess what? We're either going to accuse them of being wrong, thereby claiming that we know more than they did, even though we are not Jews raised in understanding Jewish thought, or maybe we ought to change our own views and accept the fact that the New Testament writers saw Israel's past history as typological. Just read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, all the way down through verse 11, where Paul the Apostle explicitly says, Israel's history was typological, he said, of us, that's his first century generation, upon whom the ends of the ages has come. Now, the Old Testament prophets spoke of the coming end of the age, didn't they? And Paul said those things that happened to them centuries ago were types and shadows. Just like Paul said in Colossians chapter 2, 16 and 17, when he wrote to the Gentiles who were being pressured by Judaizers to obey the law of Moses, Paul says, let no man judge you in respect of new moons, feast days, and Sabbaths, which are, present tense, a shadow of the good things that are about to come. So those old covenant feast days, which had been going on for 1,500 years, Paul said they're types and shadows of what is about to take place. Do you see that typological viewpoint? Do you see how Paul is drawing on reading the Old Covenant scriptures through the prism of typology, through the prism of Christ? That's exactly what's going on. So he Isaiah accuses Israel, Yahweh does, of being sinful. Now, make no mistake, and many writers have taken note of this, that Jesus and the New Testament writers accused the first century Jews of turning the temple into their idol. The one who swears by the temple is greater than the one who swears it like this over here. Yeah, they believed that the temple and the cultus had been turned into a new type of idolatry. That's what these scholars agree to. Okay, so the Lord is accusing Israel of being guilty of horrific sin, of putting other things in front of him. Now watch this. I've already mentioned to you, the New Testament writers posit salvation and judgment as synchronous events. The New Testament writers posit the time of the salvation of the remnant as a then ongoing, 2,000 years ago, a then ongoing event, process, but a process that would not be long or protracted. It would be brought to pass, perfected, shortly and quickly at the day of the Lord, the coming of Christ out of Zion, in fulfillment of Isaiah 27 and Isaiah 59, Psalm 69. I'll try to get to that to demonstrate how powerful that is. But do you get the point here, folks? Here, in Isaiah 65:12, after promising the salvation of the remnant, but accusing Israel of sin, the Lord says the following: therefore I will number you. Who's the you? The corporate body. I will number you to the sword. Now notice what he does. And you shall all bow down to the slaughter. Well, wait a minute. He just got through saying not all. So that means the all here in verse 12 is the all of the sinful, rebellious body. It's not including the remnant that would be saved. We have to look at the term all in the context in which it is being used. I will not destroy them all. I'll save a remnant. And then he turns his attention to the body and says, you will all bow down to the slaughter. There's only one way to properly look at this. And you have the all of the remnant, and you have the all of the rebellious. The all of the remnant would be saved. The all of the rebellious would be destroyed. And remember, this is in the context of bringing the new creation into existence. And boy, that's important. Okay, listen, don't forget, go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, order a copy of the book, Elijah Has Come. I got to tell you, Elijah John the Baptizer as Elijah is so critically important for understanding biblical eschatology. I can't discuss that today, but get a copy of that book. And I go over all of this in Romans 11 that I'm sharing with you now. It will blow your mind. It will bring clarity, however, to the entire topic of eschatology. Don't fail to get a copy, okay? Be sure to join me tonight on Two Guys and a Bible. I've forgotten whether William is with me tonight or not. I know he's getting ready to go back to Ghana, but I'll be with you, okay, Lord willing. So I'll see you tonight on Two Guys and a Bible, a voice you can trust. Thanks for joining me. See you on the flip side.